Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of RPGs with Paddy. I'm Paddy. Today we're going to continue this mini-series looking at some of the supplements produced by Zgrozy for Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. These 5 scenarios or supplements are all on sale at the moment at about 50% off until the end of August. And all of the proceeds from this will help this independent publisher get back on their feet and help fund the upcoming print-on-demand anthology. I have no connection with these guys at all. I'm not getting paid for this or anything. There's no affiliate link. I just really like what they do. I want to share it with you, so hopefully you can find something you like and also support these great independent publishers. Today's supplement is going to be Dracula, the Great Old One. Now, just hear me out before you decide if you want to stay for this one or not. Some people have a problem with literary figures appearing in games like this, and other people have a problem with more traditional horror creatures like vampires. But for the first problem, the Dracula presented in this supplement is a very different version of Dracula than is presented in the novel. And for the latter problem, we know that vampires are already included in the standard Call of Cthulhu, appearing in Malleus Monstrorum, which is published by Chaosium. And recently, John and Seth did a podcast talking about the appearance of vampires in Call of Cthulhu scenarios. So it's really not that far out there, but this is different from anything that you're going to imagine as well. So whatever your feelings are, I really encourage you to listen through with an open mind, because this is a really excellent supplement. This is a supplement, not a scenario, so the spoiler warning, I'll still put a spoiler warning here, but it's not as strict as I usually issue. I won't be going into all the minute detail because it's quite large. I think 40 pages, and you should get the supplement yourself to find out all the details. But if you do want to avoid all spoilers, then players, you should stop watching here. So, as I mentioned before, the player's knowledge of Dracula is not what's important here. Now, the players. What is important is how Dracula is framed by the occultists in this time period in your game. The supplement here draws a very nice parallel to Transylvania being at the edge of the known world from the Western point of view at the time, and how in this interpretation of Dracula, Dracula is really living on the border between our world and our dimension and another, more some space-time discontinuation. Dracula himself is probably not going to be the main antagonist in this supplement and how you use this. So he has gained some semblance of control over space and time through his experiments and his contact with Yog-Sothoth and Shub-Niggurath and others. And now, like a great old one, he doesn't really care about humanity. He's not looking to enslave us or to rule the world, but equally he has no problem with hunting or killing us and using us in experiments. Basically, he uses life force to control, to some extent, time and space. That, of course, means sacrificing people, but it could also mean sacrificing or consuming mythos creatures as well. And this could be from something as small as, a deep one, to potentially, I think they mentioned briefly, the idea of what would happen if Dracula were to consume Cthulhu. It's probably a little bit too far for me. I can't imagine Dracula taking over Cthulhu, but it's open for you there anyway. So the main antagonist will probably be the occultists. And of course, they usually, like standard occultists, really revere power and magic and all that comes from the great old ones or any outer gods, any more powerful being. But Dracula was once a man who then rose to these heights. So occultists are really desperate to find out his secret so that they can, it's not only getting a little bit of the power granted to them by a god, but actually that they might be able to attain that as well. With regards to Dracula's plans, it should be no surprise that the plans of a great old one are difficult to comprehend to mere mortals, even those who kind of dedicate their life to studying Dracula in the world. But it is suggested here that Dracula himself might also not really know, or maybe not remember what his goals are. He's treated as more akin to a mad scientist doing experiments that he might not even understand. But at the core, blood is very important to him, and he views bloodlines as crucial. So that can also be a nice hook to bring in your players. Maybe they discover an old bloodline of theirs that's either could be beneficial or harmful to Dracula. So a decent portion of the supplement is given over to Dracula's castle, which is treated like a non-Euclidean maze. It details how to get there and how to get out, well, the difficulties associated with it, even though it's an interdimensional space now. It also talks about the difficulty about moving around the castle or trying to find something in there that you're looking for. And there's also good information about the other residents of the castle, either helpful or harmful to you, which you might stumble across. And a lot of work clearly went into the various residents you can find here, and it really just sparks the imagination. You can use them just as they are now, or you can use it just as inspiration for your own thing. So I think this is really top-notch work. The only slight criticism I have for this entire supplement is that it didn't really do much work to help show or to give ideas to the keeper for how to show the non-Euclidean nature of the castle. Sure, yes, some of the rooms move around or things subtly change from time to time, but I feel like we could have used some more strange geometry, some guidance on that. Actually, for this, even though I just mentioned it in the other Zgrozy video, is I found the scenario Mist Jews from the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu Keeper's Screen to be a good starting point for talking about non-Euclidean things. And before I ran it, I found a lot of great advice in the Call of Cthulhu forums. I can't remember exactly where, a variety of places, related to this scenario, Mist Jews, and I think that would help if you're trying to evoke a sense of the non-Euclidean geometry of the place. But after this, we get a bit of information about how Dracula can interact with our world, although he dislikes it. He wants to stay in his interdimensional castle as much as possible, but we get a few points on role-playing Dracula, whether in or out of his castle, and pointing out that he's not exactly like what the players might expect from having read the novel Dracula. He can be a bit more absent-minded than he can be a bit more absent-minded, and he might ignore some of the players if he comes across them in the castle. And he is definitely, it clearly says he's definitely not the charming personality that appears in the novel. He just doesn't care enough about humanity to be that charming. But equally, he's not soft. Because of his complete disregard for life, he can cruelly kill or experiment on anything he sees fit. But next we get some information about what the investigators can learn about Dracula through his appearance in a number of Mythos tomes. But what's more, the fine people over at Zgrozy have also created some new Mythos tomes specifically for this supplement, this incarnation, this interpretation of Dracula. And then in the following section, there are all of the rituals, not that Dracula has. We get stats about Dracula and his abilities earlier, I think. But we get all of the rituals that occultists can learn or have learned in their quest to follow in Dracula's footsteps. So these are also things that the players might be able to learn. But they are all imperfect versions of what Dracula has over the years perfected. And similar to the Mist Sower, Zgrozy have supplied details of 4 real-time bouts of madness and 4 summarized bouts of madness, which connect to Dracula and his lore as presented here. So rather than using the standard bouts of madness that you find in the Keeper's Guide, here are ones that are specifically connected to this supplement, which I think is always fantastic to have. In the penultimate section, we get full-page descriptions for a variety of important NPCs that you may wish to use in a Dracula scenario or campaign, including the likes of course, Van Helsing, Mina Harker, Renfield, and others. And finally, at the end, as if it wasn't enough already, we are given 2 campaign frames in which to use Dracula the Great Old One. The first one is set in the Gaslight era, so you know I'm going to love that one. And the other one is set in the classic 1920s period. Now, these are not fully fleshed out campaigns, just the framework for it at 2 pages for each campaign outline. But in that, they give a plot, suggested scenes, key plot elements, and some suggested outcomes depending on what your group does. But I think this is, just right. As I said at the start, not everyone likes the idea of having a Dracula character in their games. However, the supplement, the whole thing, provides many different ways that you can choose to flesh out the Dracula in a way that suits your game and your group. So that's why leaving the 2 campaigns as outlines is probably the best idea. Although I certainly wouldn't be adverse to a full campaign using this version of Dracula. I think it's fascinating. So as I'm sure you can all tell, I love this supplement. A lot of work has clearly been put into it, and not only reimagining the famous character, but also thinking about how the world around him would change based on this interpretation and this incarnation of Dracula. When I first saw the title and I thought of Dracula as a great old one, I'll admit even I was a little bit put off. I thought it sounded a little bit silly, and it's like we're supposed to be this unknown thing. But after reading through this, and actually even after just a few pages of this, they make a very convincing case. There's a disclaimer at the start that also says you can include all of the information and abilities, and then Dracula will essentially become a great old one. Or you can kind of scale it down to your choice so that he's, merely a very powerful occultist or something like that. But there is so much great information in this. I strongly recommend you going out and picking it up. As I said at the start, until the end of August 2023, there is a 50% discount. And there's a link in the description, and there's a second link to the full price one, just in case you're visiting after August. As I said before, none of this is sponsored. I just want to spread the word about excellent third-party creators, and I hope that you guys will also support them. If you want to support me, I would really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed, or if you sent this video to anyone you think might enjoy it. All right, so that is going to do it for today. Have a great day, everyone, and I will see you next time. All right, bye.